With a message for my people.
Nick Dad, baby. We the new label.
Come on.
Now this the black sheep, sticking it to him. I need a crib like I'm Gatsby.
I need it.
In hand, just understand my pocket's that deep.
With
nothing to prove, I ain't got nothing to do. When they can't compete and I got nothing to lose. You see, they told me I'm the one that's gonna benefit.
That was a little delayed that
was
time.
a little delayed. Not as good as the last cut, Isaiah, but still good, bro.
They'll see it on Monday.
They'll see. Yeah, the
Monday's cut.
Oh, Monday's cut was like
we've been there.
yeah,
Like
done
we've
this
been
before.
there.
Done this before. Shout out to everyone for supporting the show. All things Veterans Minimum or at Veterans Minimum. Thank you for listening. Follow us where you need to follow us: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, tables, ladders, chairs, oh my, Spotify, Apple, the whole nine. And big ups. Let's get it out the way right away to the Patreon members. Patreon.com/Veterans Minimum. Haven't done a shout out in a while. Got some heat for this. I want to bang this out real quick. Daniel Gibson, Mahul Patel, Abel Rezin, Ben Kotzian, Christopher Velasquez, Derek Platees, Dylan Chadwick, Jerry Shapiro, Jordan Riley, Mike Stevens, Mike Wozniak, Nick Crummich, Thomas Robinson, and shout out to Colton Hubbard, newest member of the Patreon. Thank you for your contributions. As you can see here on the screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, $5 tier, $10 tier, monthly giveaways, $20 tier, you get roll call, merch discount. In the process of putting some new merch together, George, one of it was inspired by you.
I know. I can't wait for those.
It's going to be good. And then we have the Supermax, which we also greatly, greatly appreciate. Big shout outs in particular to the following people: Nick Chavez, Christopher Velasquez, Derek Platees, Daniel Gibson, and let's go Dylan Chadwick as well, and Jordan Riley. You guys have all pledged to the Patreon over $900 in your careers in the lifetime of the Patreon.
That's
I mean,
that's huge. That is huge.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much for that. Reach out to me. I'm going to send you guys something. Send you some merch from the merch store. If you don't hit me up, that's your fault. You're not going to get the free item. But yeah, thank you, man. It goes a long way. And there's a couple other people that have passed the 500 mark, and it's cool, man. It's cool. This was, the Patreon was the first time that I really made money off podcasting.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize the value of it as a content creator and in just ways that you can help build a community. Like, you are well ahead of a lot of people in that regard of being able to be like, yeah, bro, I got my own little independent private shit, but it's public to the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you got to be a part of the Patreon because they've spent almost $900.
Yeah.
But they could have possibly made well over 5 Gs
Yeah.
following your plays.
Picks have been crazy.
I mean,
Picks have been good.
It's well worth the investment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been good, man. And also, like, in the grand scheme of things, you're supporting a brand too. Like, you're supporting a whole thing that we're building out here. So shout out to all of you guys. Thanks a lot. And yeah, maybe you're holding on to a Mavericks future, as we just saw game 1 come to an end. Let's talk with that, man, because at the time we just finished watching the game. We actually recorded a show while the game was on, but then shout out to Isaiah. He threw it on one of the monitors right over here.
Clutch.
Super clutch. Quick on his feet. Helped us. Got us a little distracted, but the Mavs did win.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. They're up 1-0 on the Wolves. The magic number was 65. I said that Kyrie and Luka need 65. They ended with 63. So not too far off. But if you guys saw the Monday show, talked about it, my favorite play was Kyrie 21.5 on Rebet. Another plug, shout out to Rebet, a free-to-play social sports book, real cash, real money, peer-to-peer betting, which is what I've said the future of sports betting was going to be and is going to be. Users can post their bets to their feed where followers can like, comment, or even rebet their bet. If you use the promo code VM, you get a match deposit bonus of $100. We've given out $200 so far to people to go on and play on Rebet. And the winner for this week from the Patreon is Dylan Chadwick. Dylan, when you hear this, hit us up, get in contact with me, DM the pagers or DM me personally. You're in the Discord, hit me up there. We're going to send you $100 to play on Rebet as the May giveaway for the Patreon. And it's easy to read lines, beginner friendly. Minus 105 lines coming up for the NBA Finals. That's going to be massive because ain't nobody giving you minus 105. The minus one, the 10 and minus 1010 and the 15 and minus 115 is how all this shit was built in Las Vegas
100%.
and all these sports books. So you're getting minus 105. That's crazy. No one else is offering that in the market. So Rebet app, download, use the promo code VM. And like we said, we had Kyrie. We thought Kyrie was going to go crazy one of these games. He had to go crazy. He had 24 at halftime.
Yeah.
Him and Luka ended with 63. And you just know, man, like one of the reasons why I was all in, George, on the Mavs back in March, where we did that segment that the 4 teams that were in the play-in at the time featured Durant, Curry, Luka, Kyrie, AD, and LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
We were saying, yo, if you're the Thunder, you have this monster season for the first time in a decade, pretty much, or like 7-8 years. You know, it's been a while in Oklahoma City. But shit, man, first round of the playoffs, you're going to have to play one of these juggernauts. They end up playing the Pelicans. But regardless, at the time, and we said that Mavericks at 40-1 because Luka and Kyrie, I called them soul snatchers because they've gone into buildings in game 7s, game 5s in a 2-2 series, and they've snatched the soul out of the fan base.
Yep.
What Luka did in Phoenix to Booker and them where they were down 30 at halftime, mute. The Phoenix arena was shut down. Pack it up. Kyrie going into Golden State hits the biggest shot of LeBron James's career. Biggest shot LeBron James ever hit in his career was not even by him. It was by Kyrie Irving, right? So these are guys that, man, they don't care. At some point, you don't care where you go and play.
Yeah.
And they're going to need them to continue. I think that 65 mark is a real number, and you saw them get really close to it.
You need that without a doubt. Kyrie's been holding back, dare I say, in the first couple of rounds of this playoffs, where it's like, we know Kyrie has the ability to create shots whenever he wants. I was explaining to Maddie, like, one of the things that I love about Kyrie's play, like when he's like in his untucked Kyrie state, what I like to call, is the way that he tosses the ball out into open spaces as opposed to like keeping a dribble close. Like there's not too many point guards in the league that like toss the ball into open space, weave their way through, pick up their dribble, and still make a play. And I think Kyrie is one of one, literally one of. I don't think there's a better dribbler in the NBA right now, other than him. And I mean, there's a lot of good other candidates, but I'm a fan of the way that he's taken this role. He said it after the first quarter interview in tonight's game, where he said, "I've been here before, so I got to lead my guys." I was like, that's all I needed to hear, bro. Because there's sometimes where you have these superstars and you're wondering, like, are you relinquishing your role to Luka fully, or are you going to, take back your, like, what made you a superstar, which is being, I'm going to get the last shot. I think I was on this show when I told you the Mavs are in an interesting situation because when it comes to a clutch time, you need a basket with less than 10 seconds. Who's taking that shot? And I believe I told you that shot's got to come from Kyrie. I still, and especially after the performance tonight, come a clutch time moment, whether it's a game 6 or a game 7, I think the ball goes to Kyrie, as crazy as it seems.
No, I agree with you to a certain extent. And I think another reason why I like the Mavs was that's a good problem to have, that you could trust both of those guys 100%. In those spots, which I think is even cooler and better if you're a Mavs fan or someone like me who's financially invested. Remember, when you make bets, they're investments. We're not gambling here. We're betting. It's investments. One thing I do want to mention, and I found it really interesting because for so long I've been talking about how if you were to miss this game, you weren't to watch the game, you were busy, you were trying, whatever you were doing. A lot of NBA playoff games come down to 3-pointers, especially in the playoffs. And like the massive swings and the variance in 3-point shooting, if you just look at the box score, you can kind of see who won the game. bro, couldn't be further from the truth for this game.
Right.
Because the Mavs went 6 of 25 from 3, while Minnesota went 18 of 49.
Nuts.
Think about that, bro.
Nuts.
And they lose. They lose at home. I don't want to get too crazy because I do have a question for when we get to the Pacers and Celtics series. But, man, if you're Dallas, you steal this game for how poorly you shot from 3, right? Derrick Jones Jr. in that last series against the Thunder, shit, I don't know what he shot, but it felt like he was shooting 80% from 3 because, like, every big moment, when the Thunder would go on like a 8-0 run, he'd hit a 3. When the Mavs were on like a 17-3 run, he'd hit another 3. Like, he was a run starter or stopper, and he went 0 for 2, right? PJ Washington, 2 for 8. He hit, and his last 3 was like the one that kind of made it a 2-possession game in the last minute. Luka, 3 of 10. Kyrie, 0 for 3. Like, if you were to just look at the box score, you would say there's no way the Mavericks won. Because then on the flip side, Jaden McDaniels, 6 of 9. Ant-Man, a little terrible, but 41% from 3, 5 of 12. And like Naz Reid, 3 of 6. So like, it's crazy, man, because sometimes you'll just see that. And this should have been on the surface a box score game where the Timberwolves won by 20, but they lose by 3. So I think it's a massive win for Dallas. As someone that bet on the Mavs, I wanted them just to split. So they're going to steal. They've already stolen home court advantage. But my question to you about this series, and just sort of like, do you ever look at teams and you feel as if they're just not, they're like a year away? And sometimes like success, like Minnesota has been on this run. And look, they could still win the series, but I'm just asking like a general question because I feel like Minnesota, what we were talking about on the last show, that's going to come out on Monday, we were talking about like, yo, bro, if you're not the Timberwolves, Nuggets, Mavericks, or Thunder in the West, it's kind of a wrap for you.
For a while.
For the foreseeable future, the next like 2-3 seasons.
Yep.
So like if you're Paul George, maybe you should go to the Sixers because you ain't winning with the Clippers. If you're LeBron, maybe you go to one of these teams.
Go to the East.
Shit, a lot of the rumors have been surfacing about him going to the Mavs.
Oh, Mavs?
Yeah, remember CJ Watson was on the show, and he said that like 3 weeks ago. He's like, I think he goes to the Mavs with Bronny.
I saw on an Instagram post that Bronny is projected to go to the Celtics, 54th overall.
Wow, interesting.
Can you imagine?
LeBron
James would never play. I don't think LeBron would be allowed to play for the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't think.
I literally.
I think Celtics fans hate LeBron James.
Like people would boycott their season tickets
until he comes on the field and just drops a 38-7.
I would, bro.
And is just chilling.
I'd get a jersey in every single color.
But yo, do you feel that way about Minnesota?
Yeah, though? I don't. I do hear your theory though on teams being 1 year away. This Minnesota team though
is ready.
This to me,
it's probably a bad example that I'm giving, but I'm trying to think of like the concept of a team is a year away. Like I think the Thunder, like they overachieved, but at no point did I think the Thunder were going to win the title.
Yeah, because the NBA has yet to have like a Fab Five situation where you have a bunch of rookies. Like the Thunder are the Thunder from 2012 with KD, Russ, and Harden were the same thing that we're seeing now with Chet, Shea, and whoever you want to consider their third player, whether it's Jalen Williams or whoever else. But the Timberwolves are ready, and the fact that they dropped this one tonight kind of highlights to me a couple of things that I have firmly implanted in my brain. One is that Rudy Gobert could quite possibly go down in NBA history as the most overrated player in the history of the game. The Mavericks listen to the points in the paint tonight. The Mavericks scored 62 points in the paint to Minnesota's 38. Let me go one series back. In some of the biggest moments of the Nuggets versus Timberwolves games, you saw Jokic being guarded by Karl Anthony Towns. How is that even like remotely possible if you are the defensive player of the year in the biggest situations of the game? And so I think the Timberwolves are legitimately plagued by a person that he's an imposter. And I think Rudy Gobert, he hits that one shot that everyone's going to remember, right? The fadeaway to clinch the series, and that's where everyone was like, "Oh, this is how we know we had it sealed." It's like, no shit. Rudy Gobert finally did something productive, and yeah, we are going to move on. If the Timberwolves are going to win the NBA Finals, which I still think they might be the best bet to win the finals, even after dropping this first game, it's got to come from Rudy Gobert finally saying, like, I can't allow this to happen. I can't not guard Jokic in the series before, and then in game one against the Mavericks, Daniel Gafford, you're going to let PJ Washington score 62 points on you in the paint. You just can't have that.
Yeah, and the thing with Rudy Gobert that's really interesting is I feel like he's such a polarizing player because there's people that think he's amazing, and then there's people that think that he's wild overrated. There was a report that came out that of the top 15 salaries in the NBA right now, he's the only one that is still remaining in the playoffs.
Yep.
Right? And then if you're looking at that list, or if you're looking at, I've spoke about this shit so many times in the past. Remember we were talking about Paul George when he got locked up by Joe Ingles?
Yeah.
That one series.
Yep.
And it's like, bro, you got to be really careful who you're paying the Supermax to.
Agreed.
Because it destroys your salary cap. You could have two guys on a Supermax, and then you could have a third guy on like a max. And then after that, it's a bunch of guys on the veterans minimum, cheap plug. But you got to be really careful, bro. And the joke that I was making is when Paul George was going to sit there, if I was the GM and he was going to sit there and I would give the sales pitch to sign him, the first thing I would show is Joe Ingles and be like, yo, bro, $50 million a year, and this is what locks you up? Like, come on now. We're going to have this conversation. And then with Rudy Gobert, I think he's a great help defender.
Agreed.
There's so many times where when you're watching, because I didn't watch a lot of the Timberwolves this year, but with the playoffs, the one thing you notice with him is when like Karl Anthony Towns is guarding an Aaron Gordon and Rudy comes and helps, that's where like he gets the blocks or he alters shots. But look,
one-on-one defender, Jokic is getting bodied.
Yeah, and Jokic is a beast, so he makes a lot of people look foolish.
Agreed.
Yeah, right.
But you got it. But you have to. There's no way that I'm watching this game and you're not guarding him.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. And that was another thing that like there's certain guys that just are made for the playoffs. Where I always showed love to Alvarado on the Pelicans. One, because he's from New York City. Always got to show love to New York City Hoopers, but also like in the playoffs, there are certain guys that are they're made for that moment, even though they're not the best player on the team. Like he was picking up Chris Paul and Booker full court. Like that stuff matters. Crunch time. I could put you out there. You're not going to be a deer in the headlights. Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing with Minnesota was they were looking at the landscape of the West and they built a really good team to beat the Nuggets. Right. And 100%. Like a lot of basketball, my boy Dunbar always talked about this and it's true. And then when you really think about it, it's like, yo, a lot of basketball is just matchups. And like they don't match up well with the Mavericks. I know it's just game one, but they matched up great because of the size with the guys down low for the Nuggets. For the Nuggets and what they had with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy and then Naz Reid being so physical too. So I don't know, man. It's just something that like, game 2 is going to be really interesting. Yeah. Because remember, Minnesota won the first 2 in Denver, where, I would love for Dallas to go up 2-0 and then go back to Dallas, because I think Dallas has one of the 4 or 5, probably a top 3 home court advantage, I would say. Like, the fans really care. They're invested. Kind of feels like a college atmosphere in a way.
As long as you have Mark Cuban there.
I think Cuban is what influences it the most.
On a timeout,
Yeah.
Him and Steve Ballmer both just give me that, like, you are the team's mascot. Like, it's not that little horse that runs around. No, your mascot is Mark Cuban, and you will show him before we go into every single commercial break. Because it gets you fired up. Like, how can it not? How can it not? A billionaire. He's a partial owner of the team now. He's not even the full owner. Still loves the city. Game 2 is going to show me a lot. The guard play has got to... is got to step up. Like these are the moments that go down in the career of what's going to be a superstar player with Anthony Edwards, where like Anthony Edwards, you got to be scoring 25 points a game. Like there's no, Jolly G coach, I tried, and he'll be the first to admit it too. Like, I mean, at his post-game press conference after the Nuggets, he literally looked at the stat sheet and said, 6 for 24, fuck, I suck.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think he feels it, but at the same time, he's 22. This is a big moment, and he's guarding a Hall of Fame point guard.
Yeah. And look, man, he almost had a triple-double, too. He had 19, 11, and 8.
So
but
Draymond
again, he
Green
needs to
line.
he needs to be the guy that gets some 30.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, you know how I said Kyrie and Luka got to get 65? I feel like he needs to get 30.
Who would be the two for the Timberwolves that need to get 65? Because they do play like a balanced type style.
They do. They
but
are
it's
balanced.
got to be Cat,
And
right?
I think Cat would be the leading candidate. But then again, like Jaden McDaniels gets hot from
True.
3. He could be that guy. Like we've seen PJ Washington. Shout out to Wayne. Wayne was like, yo,
swear,
PJ
dude.
Washington. That was
Wayne put
crazy.
us on.
And then he had 29 that night.
It was
too.
like, wait, what did Wayne do?
Shout out to Wayne. It's like he had a crystal ball. But yo, I think what's really interesting about Minnesota, there was a crazy stat that was going around that in games that Anthony Edwards scored 8 or less points in the first half of a game, they were 8-1 this year. So there's also that counter. They don't really need him to get 30.
Right.
Is it an additional boost? Absolutely. But I think like if you're the alpha and you want to enter that new face of the league and he's super brash and he did the DX, which, you know, as a wrestling fan, I was loving that shit. But I think now at this point, you need to be averaging the 30 that you're averaging in the playoffs this playoff. So
Yeah.
I think he definitely, that needs to be the number for him. And look, he took the shots for it. You know, he was 6 of 16, 5 of 12 from 3, and his shot just didn't fall.
Yeah.
But again, like how much is that now guarding Luka and Kyrie going to take away from him? Because he got to
On
go
the offensive side. Yeah.
both sides of the ball there. So it's gonna be interesting, man. Game 2 is gonna be fascinating. Before we wrap with the Timberwolves and Mavericks, you mentioned it before how, you know, coming in they were plus 280 to win the finals. Now they're plus 480. So if you're still a believer in the Timberwolves,
Yeah.
which you should be, right? You kind of should be. Though
Agreed.
I will say this is the first time this playoffs that they're gonna be chasing. Remember, they were up. They swept the Suns. They went up 2-0 on Denver. So that's something to monitor. But if you still believe in the Timberwolves, you could bet them at plus 480 now. But the Mavs now are currently the favorites at minus 135 to win this series.
Yeah, the one reason I like it, because if you're going to be making like an exacta play or if you're going to be looking into what their next matchup would be, I think they match up perfectly with both the Celtics and the Pacers. So if they make it through this series, I'm like, damn near you should be crowning them, because there's no way in hell that the Pacers can keep up with the Timberwolves, and there's no way that the Celtics could, you know, rely on a 17-year veteran Al Horford to guard the two Twin Towers. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen. Luke Cornett, come on now.
Yeah, let's not get crazy.
Let's
not get crazy.
Let's get easy. Yeah.
Yo, can I show love to Kyrie Irving, Josh Hart, and Jalen Williams?
Go.
Did you see the not reports, but like the comments they made the last couple weeks about fatigue and playing basketball?
No, can you fill me in? Because I was looking. I was like,
I can't tell you how much I fucking loved what they said. I mean, dude. So if you guys missed it, they asked Jalen Williams about why are you so happy when you're playing basketball? And he goes, I make millions of dollars to dribble a basketball up and down the court. Hard not to be happy. The next day, Josh Hart, you got people getting up at 6 a.m. doing 12-hour shifts. Those people are tired. Us, we're playing a game. Because they asked Josh Hart about, dude, you're playing 47 minutes. You played every minute. Like, are you tired? He comes back with those comments. And then Kyrie says, I think Josh Hart had a tremendous quote where he talked about people having 12-hour shifts, and we get to go out there and play a kid's game that we love. I think that was the nail right on the head for a lot of us and how we feel. Bless those guys, bro, because the amount of times here in the studio, and I know the guys back there, I've heard these conversations too, we get millionaires, sometimes even billionaires, come in here and record content, and they tell you how miserable they are but they have all this money. It's like you're so untapped with the real world. The level of delusion, it drives me crazy, bro. Because they're not realizing how like an extra $600 a month for, I don't know, 7 out of 10 households would change a lot of people's lives. So these kind of comments that you hear, to me, it's like, bro, I want to buy a jersey for all these guys, because social media has made a lot of people delusional in the sense of like, oh, dude, you make $100,000 a year, you shouldn't be happy. Like, what, bro? Like $100,000? Like, that's a different tax bracket for a lot of people. And these guys are finally making money. They're making big money, and they're not miserable about it.
Yeah.
You're in the content space too. How many entrepreneurs come in here and they're like, yo, money doesn't buy you happiness? And you're like, bro, let me have those problems. I've told everyone that knows me, if I ever complain, if I'm making millions of dollars and I complain, slap me. I won't be offended. Yeah. And this is just me talking, bro. This is just my opinion, how I feel. I don't have sympathy for those kind of people that make millions of dollars and then they're crying wolf. Like, nah, bro, that's not gonna work with me. Because I went back to New York, dude, and I was eating a tremendous bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich from Tony's place.
I did.
And I'm watching my dad work, and I watched some of the construction guys work, and I'm starting to think, I'm like, man, I used to have to work fucking 8-hour shifts, wake up at 2:30 in the morning to make in a week what I'm making in a day and a half now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how can I not be happy about it? Like, look at this is real work. Fucking drilling holes into the center of Times Square and Park Avenue. And it's like, yo, to me, bro, that's the one thing I can't get behind. When people have, I think money does buy you happiness, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because it relieves a lot of stress for people, dude.
It buys you the ability to spend time reflecting on what you've done, which is exactly what these players get to do as well. Like I would imagine in a season, you're going as hard as you can on your craft because, like, one, you love it, which I wanted to tie this part into it. How many people do you know that play like semi-pro sports, or like they've been playing baseball for the last like 15 years since high school ended, and they're the happiest people in the world? They're like, they can't wait for their Saturday tournaments to go out there. And
I literally went to Sunday football when I went back to New York.
Perfect.
And so many people are like, bro, I live for this. Like, this is my league. And it's like, yeah, bro, I feel you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yo, you're working these like shitty jobs sometimes, but you have that one thing that gives you fulfillment. And that's always how I felt about the content creating and the podcast in general.
Shout out to a perfect non-example is like, shout out to Jamarcus Russell. You know, mans couldn't watch film.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much easier than that.
Yeah.
Nick's out here playing Sunday football.
Yeah. Could still sling.
By the way. Love to
still sling.
He would love to go home and watch film on how to slice up a cover 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's doing that shit for free.
You would. Yeah. You
were
absolutely
getting
would.
millions. So yeah, I am 100% with you. I can't. Here's the thing. Like, when people start talking about that shit, it just tunes out in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's just my ADHD and like I can't necessarily focus on, which, by the way, I hate the fact that I just said my ADHD. I'm not one of those people, but like, you know, you can get distracted and shit, especially when people are complaining about their fucking lives. It's like, this is pretty. I want to make this very clear. If you're someone that is making money and you're talking to me personally, again, this is Nick Dais talking. You're talking to me personally. You're complaining to me about like struggles and all that stuff. The lights are on, but no one's home. I've tuned you out. I just can't, bro. I just can't do that. It's just something I can't get behind, man. I can't get behind. It's just, and again, it's from experience. Like, it's from experience, bro. And it brings happiness. It brings a relief knowing that, like, yo, you get a bill, and all right, y'all just pay it. It's not, because I've been there where I get a bill and I'm like, oh my God, what do I got to pay my accountant for? Like, I can't do nothing for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So to me, having that luxury, it's crazy. We do have a couple minutes before we go out. I do want to touch on the Celtics and Pacers series. And the one thing I want to ask you, I kind of hinted at it before, but I always find it interesting, and I don't know if it's just me, but there's times when I'm watching a game in a series, and it tends to happen when it's early in the series. Hell, it always happens when it's early in the series.
I think the Pacers could just pack it up. I know it's one loss, but them losing to the Celtics in game 1, having the game in the grasp. Dude, with 24 seconds left, the Celtics were plus 500 to win that game. I was staring at it. I was like, nah, there's no way. Plus I got some Celtics futures, like Celtics Mavericks to be the finals. I'm like, I'm not really betting on this matchup because there's nothing I could bet on that could win me as much money as if this being in the finals. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for me, I'm just watching it like as a fan. And with the Pacers losing that and the late game, not antics, but the misjudgment of time management, timeouts, where to take the ball out from Rick Carlisle. And then he came out and said, like, yo, I lost this game for us. Do you ever watch series and say, oh, they lost that game that they had, they're not winning the series?
Yes. Both of the questions that you've asked me today are like, yes, and this to me is not that situation. For the sole fact that the Pacers actually are capable of playing this style of basketball the remainder of the series. Like, to me, this wasn't like out of the ordinary for the Pacers. Like, they're on a crazy hot run, dude. What they did to your Knicks in game 7, unprecedented. What they did to the Celtics for 4 quarters of this game in game 1 was ball movement, unselfishness, tough defense. And the fact that they were able to put up a performance like they did highlighted to me a couple of things. One, the way that Boston plays basketball is actually very beatable, because if you move the ball around, shocker, 3 passes get you an easy layup. If the Pacers haven't taught you that, then you just haven't been watching the Pacers enough. They move the ball. They're a team that it doesn't make me feel like how I felt with the Thunder playing against the Mavs, where there was a couple of times in the Thunder series where I was like, that was your moment. You know what I mean? Like, you missed capitalizing on that. But with the Pacers, I'm like, bro, you can chalk this series up to being 5 points in either direction for the remainder of it. And it's probably going 6.
You know what's interesting about this question I asked you? I felt that way when the Mavericks lost game 4. When they lost game 4, I was like, because they were up and then they couldn't hit free throws at the end. Yeah. And I was like, fuck, they're going to lose this series. They end up winning. So sometimes you do need to remember, and I, especially when it's your team and they lose, you're like, oh, yo, it's the end of the world, dude. But then it's a whole series. You could still make up for it. And I tend to forget sometimes. And hopefully if you're a Pacers fan or if you've bet on the Pacers, that's something that you can sort of gravitate to. But I don't know, man. I thought the Celtics were going to win in 5 coming into this. And I kind of feel even better about that now, because I think they win game 2 also. And then Indy probably gets game 3. Celtics win game 4 and then win game 5. Yeah. And they just haven't been tested. They just haven't been tested.
I would consider this, though, like, and this is why I'm saying you can make a lot of money, people, right now by betting either team in the West. The winner is not coming out of the East. Like, the team that the Celtics put out there in game 1 is not a team that can win the NBA Finals. Truthfully. Like,
they need Porzingis. Porzingis makes them different. And I tweeted it out.
He's going to come back and he's not going to be like, bro, I mean, you're talking a full month out of playing games.
Nah,
like,
that's a fact.
You're not in shape.
Yeah.
And you're going against Miles Turner put up 18 in the first 2 quarters of game 1. That's going to be the game plan moving forward. And the Celtics have no answer. Luke Cornett is not an answer. Al Horford is old as fuck. And that's the reason why you need to. I mean, your Mavs bet's looking amazing, dude.
I feel good. I feel good after.
I feel good for you
after game 1s. Just make it to the finals. Just make it to the finals. I'll be happy. Celtics Mavs will be great. Screenshot life will be incoming. But I just feel like, I don't know, man. This series, Brown and Tatum, they showed up.
Yeah.
Brown had 26. Tatum had 36. And then Drew Holiday finally had a monster game. He had 28.
Crazy, right?
And, I just think that I'm putting a lot of stock into that game 1 loss for the Pacers. I think it's a wrap for them. They needed that one, and They didn't get it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I do think it's going to be. So I agree with you that it's a wrap. Just be very careful on taking any sides with the Celtics, especially if the Celtics go up 2-0 going into Indiana. Dare I say they're going to be a 5-point favorite?
Probably.
That's when you hammer the other side. You know what I mean? Like the Celtics are a team I wouldn't necessarily trust with a point spread over 5.
Well, listen, man, game 2 is going to be interesting for Boston. I know I said that they might win by 20, but they've lost both game 2s in the playoffs. And for as much as we think Boston has a great home court advantage, I believe they're 16-16 in their last 32 games at home. So, look, it's going to be both game 2s are going to say a lot.
I'm so excited. Nick, we get basketball every night until the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
so
good,
nice,
man.
dude.
It's good. And especially if you're a hockey fan also, like my Rangers lost game 1, but then you get, dude, like think about Dallas, bro. How dope is Dallas right now? They got the Stars, the favorite to win the cup, and then you have the Mavericks who just won game 1. So every night that arena is getting
just reset.
Yeah.
That's
watch
nuts.
Parties, games. So it's gonna be dope, man. All things Veterans Minimum are at Veterans Minimum. We gotta wrap up. George, you're the man. Thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Of course, dude.
Vacation George back in the building. Got
Yes,
that.
sir.
Oh, you changed the hats. You'll see the hat on the next episode.
Yeah, that's real vacation.
All things Veterans Minimum are at Veterans Minimum. All things me at Nick Dais 10. George, where can they find you?
At Mr. George Carmona. I'm still looking for somebody to peer-to-peer bet me on rebet. So like I'm ready. All right. I'm locked and loaded for the NBA playoffs the rest of the way. Hit me up. Let's do a little peer-to-peer.
Listen, we're hot right now, bro. 7 of my last 8 bets I've hit. So let's get it. We'll catch you guys next time.
In his element, I'm a gold medalist, bronze like your medal is. So many deer in headlights, but it's bedtime. Hear that supper bell, main course be the venison.
Dab. Most dangerous game. Either kill or be killed.